the population will consider bread and butter issues.
Exactly.
So while legislation is most important.
Thank you very much.
Because
That's
when a
what I'm
man
going.
have bread and a butter,
Thank
he
you.
run away with the grocery.
That's correct.
And that is what they're talking
And
about.
he get you to forget about
That he run away with the
everything.
grocery.
That's correct.
So while he running in the grocery, look, grocery, whole of bread and a butter, and he goes with the entire grocery.
I hear somebody say,
Hold on, caller.
they don't care about
What
the
time,
red
madam?
house.
Yes.
They don't care about the billing.
Yes.
I hungry.
Yes.
But who make you hungry? You
Yes.
young and strong, you could get a work.
Yes.
You young and strong, you could do some, go and plant something, you could plant something, it matter go and look for work. You could go and plant some tomato, some okra, something. It have easy access to make money.
That's correct, Melba. Let's go to the callers.
That Red House project is 20 years old.
Yes.
In the making.
Let's go to the callers. Caller, good afternoon and welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, Ms. Davy, and good afternoon to Ms. Melba and Mr. Aruka.
Good afternoon.
Also, don't forget the old narrative, too, when they're back against the Congress, go back to Pravat and O'Halloran.
Yes.
Yeah, but let me tell you what happened, No. All remember the oil boom, right?
Yeah.
The oil boom we had, right? No. Sometimes there's a follow of our people now. There were certain people who were smart enough to invest and, and make something of themselves, like build a house and invest in things. But there were some of us, when we get the money, and there was plenty of money back then, some of us didn't do that. What happened is that we decided to go on fet party, have a second wife like an outside woman or outside man, and buy a car. And I think maybe that's where the downfall started. So, if you remember that too, so there were some of us who probably didn't understand it from proper investment.
I blame Dr. William for that.
And we can make enterprises. When they get big and you find that your grandfather have other outside children, if you understand where I'm coming from, Miss Bell,
Yes,
right now,
caller.
right? And so that is a little factor that kind of put us off the back because we didn't prioritize certain things back in the 70s.
We don't talk that, caller. We blame everybody else but ourselves.
That is right. There was a sexual revolution. But certain people in the ethnic group, when they got the oil money, some of them invested properly and they built a big house. But some of the African people, what happened is that we didn't prioritize. We spend money for so. Some of us decided to have second and third wife and have outside children. And we built by car.
I blame Dr. Williams for that.
Caller, thank you very much.
Yes, of course. So people want to say Dr. Williams for that black people.
No money and no problem. We should have never used them.
Do not forget too that there were certain places in Trinidad that was supposed to be for agricultural places, and there were certain people in this country who decided to put industrial estates and houses on agricultural land. Example, Alan West, and the recent one in Caroni. Those were farming lands.
Caller, you need to leave it there.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the next call. We'll get an opportunity again. Caller, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good
To
afternoon.
you and the people, your guests. I want to let the country know that we went to talk about what PLM has done for this country. We have started to scratch the surface. But the people, the PLM government decided to educate the masses. The children who had to pay to go to QRC and presentation, Naparima, and the other colleges. PLM stopped that. Everybody had a free education. And it started by John Donaldson Institute to prepare our youths to get trades, different schools of trades. And I don't know, the highways from San Fernando to Port of Spain was through California, from Texas, right? The first highway that was built was called Donaldson Stretch. That is from Cuba to St. Mary's Junction, right? The PNM built all the highways.
Thank you very much, caller. You need to leave it here. Good afternoon and welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, Ms. Davy.
Hi, Jenny.
Good afternoon, Ms. Alka. Good afternoon, Ms. Melba.
Good afternoon, Jenny.
For speaking the truth.
None whatsoever.
Ms. Davy, quickly out. I can. Imagine this. You have children who live in by a garden, and at that house where they live in, they don't have to say the prayer. They don't have to make up the bed. They ain't bound to even bathe. And when they eat in breakfast, is anything they want, they could get to eat lunch time, evening time. And they could do what they want, and they cool with that. You complain about the children, the neighbors, and the mother will just like defend the children, the guardian. And they go by another guardian where they have to get up, say the prayer, make the bed, have a healthy meal, and do the schoolwork and all that. Who do you think some of them will prefer?
The one who is allowing them to be lazy?
Exactly. So I'm saying that was what would have happened under UNC PT 2010-15. What we probably need to do, change our message and how we talk to certain people based on the understanding of things. Because some people like to hear, they don't want to hear that the PNM built a bridge and a hospital and all that. They're not seeing that. So what you need probably to trickle it down to where they see what are the benefits of that hospital being built in their area for their use, so that it seems real to them. Because some people, when they're going through what they're going through, all them want to hear they could get something. They don't want to hear what a hospital bill, and there are some people understand what it means when you hear a hospital is built on time with no cost overruns and we save money. There are persons you tell them that they're going to simply tell you that ain't helping me. So probably we need to tailor some of the messages when we go out there to suit certain people, so that they'll have a better understanding what do these mega and big projects or what the government has done will affect them. And I think probably if we do that, some will always never understand. You have to leave them alone. But generally speaking, if some people understand exactly what these things mean to them personally, it makes it a little more personal to them than how the UNC would do it, give them a jersey with money in it, or probably a cell phone where they feel that is something. And if they're not getting that now, some of them will feel the PNM ain't doing nothing because I ain't get a jersey, I ain't get a cell phone, whatever. So probably we need to look at how to tailor the message to suit persons like them who think like that.
But why the UNC? Why doesn't the UNC have to do the same? The UNC doesn't have to tailor. The UNC doesn't have to tailor the message.
And now mention the children who living in the house, or the parents, or the guardians don't allow them to do anything. So the UNC has to do not more than just give them things.
Tell them lies and tell them lies. Thank you very much, Sister Jenny.
Right.
Caller, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Juliet and your guest.
Good afternoon.
I'm calling from the Morga Tableland constituency. And Juliet, you know the UNC candidate by the name of Michelle Benjamin going up against Gypsy in this constituency.
Yes.
You know, them don't start campaigning.
Right.
And you know what's going around and telling the youth?
What?
The black people them. When I win, all you vote for me, when I win, I will create 1,000 jobs for you all. You hear, she's fooling the little young people them brain with that, and they're going at it. They're going for it, you know, Juliet.
Thank you very much.
Control. That you get all the education on the PNM. And what were they going to do now? It's hurting me badly, but what could I do?
Thank you very much. Caller, good afternoon, welcome.
Pleasant good afternoon, Miss Juliet.
Good afternoon.
And Radio Royalty that you have in the studio, Miss Melba and Mr. Aruka.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, pleasant good afternoon. I want to make this very short. So, Juliet, you at the church in your life, right?
Yes.
Let me ever heard the scripture. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. This is Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. And I am putting this on the Christian faith. If we had teach the whole Bible, especially this year, to our sons, that a man who does not provide for his children, this is the Old Testament, is worse than an infidel, then we would not have to have this situation now where people walking around with self-wrapping jersey to give you.
That's
and
correct.
we turn around now and say nobody ain't giving nothing.
That's correct.
Because the other religions teach you how to be thrifty and how to leave inheritance for your children, even though they fight and kill one another as we laugh at it. But look at where they are today. And we then following Christianity, especially from the Catholic Church coming, because all the rest of them come out from the Catholic Church, all the Pentecost, all them come from the Catholic Church. And what they taught us, being ex-slaves, is to be good little black boys and good little black girls, good little slaves. Teach us just enough so we could keep serving them. But we have never learned to serve each other, right? So what we need to do is read the Bible for yourself and stop following these foolish people who lead you astray. And you go down and they put your money in the tithes. So when the COVID thing was going on, they said, you send your tithes by email, send it by credit card. right? But where are we now? Because that's the father that I serve. This is what he wrote in his book, that we should leave our inheritance for our children. But what we just do, we just reach the end of the race and tell our stick, when you run the relay, instead of we hand it over to the person right here, we tell the stick back to the start. So your children always have to be starting over the race. And by the time we get to the finish line, the other ethnic groups are far way ahead of us. So that is why our politicians now don't have the kind of people with the strength to stand up, because we have failed our families and failed our children. We have failed inheritance for our children. And now we have to go HTC and we have to go and rent and live under people's house and working on nonsense. So we can be putting money towards being innovative and going after education and being more doctors and being more scientists and we be more respected. But look at where we is right now, lying on the block and talking crap at the end of the evening and whatnot. But those who did it,
pills.
Thank you.
Popping pills now.
I always
for those who did it in the past, because a lot of black people did it, I thank them and I use them as an example in my life right now. I don't care about no politician and I say he has to do this. This is me. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much and very good contribution. Caller, good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Sister Juliet.
Good afternoon, Sister Jenny. Gemma.
Good afternoon, Sister Melba, and good afternoon, Mr. Ruka.
Good afternoon.
This morning, Sister Juliet, and another frequency, I wouldn't call your name, right? If you hear how these people are them the nasty thing they saying about Dr. Rowley, saying things like how, just imagine that man only giving the church 1 hour to pray. I say, hear what I'm saying. He giving the church 1 hour. I said before time, I wasn't getting no time at all. Thank God for the hour. You understand?
Yes.
Thank God for the hour. If I want, I could give 2 services a day, have 1 hour, and then later in the evening, I'll have another hour. I say, I want to get on Dr. Roy, I'm saying this and saying that. I say, all these certain nasty things that people say on the radio about Dr. Rowley in the past and what all do, all welcome it. You understand? All welcome it. And here I say, I don't understand. It's time we, as African people, we need to love with that people. We need to love one another.
We need to love ourselves.
One another. That will be very nice. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Sister Gemma. Very good contribution. Okay, so Melba and Mr. Ruka. Let me take an international call. International caller, good afternoon. Nadia. One more and we will go back to the discussion. Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon, Juliet. Good afternoon, player guest, Mr. Ruka.
Good afternoon, sir.
What would you call is the gentleman who was talking about the lack of parenting? Now, I grew up in Belmont, and I recall all the PNM, Bacchanal, and charade leading up to independence. I was a very small boy. But one of the things my father always taught us, even though he was a PNM supporter, that people have to be self-sufficient. You have to do it on your own. Yes, the government might put certain programs in place and things, but you have to do it on your own. They could build schools. They could put all sorts of things there. But if you stay outside the school and don't go in and educate yourself, then you're going to run into problems down the road if you don't develop yourself. And I watched that happen. Because I'm the last in 10 children, And I watched my father dedicate himself to ensuring that we never were dependent on any government. Even though I support the government, I'm a PNM supporter. But when I hear...
Beautiful caller.
You see all in that Moruga area, where you was talking about that Benjamin? I don't live too far from there, and I went up there the other day. And a friend of mine was telling me, he said, this game passed wrong. And they promising people, and he showed me a bunch of fellas on the corner there. And he said, some of them buying into that. And then he showed me another house, and he said, the rest of them gambling in a back room. And I'm telling you, it's my heart to see how, all these young black fellas have no spend
wasting the time, wasting the time, and blaming a politician.
And they blaming the politician. I'm going up there, I park by a poultry, they put together some dog food. When I leave there, there are 2 girls standing up looking for a job, 2 African girls. There's an Eastern poultry there and farm. They stand up there. I couldn't get them a job because of the COVID thing. I say, I ain't dropping anybody. But it hurts me when I reach up by my friend, I say, boy, I see them girls there. All of them, before they go and learn something in school, they're young, they're still teenagers, they don't done with school, and they prepare to go and pluck chicken for the rest of their life. And until we get over that, I disagree with this fella, you know, to abandon the politics. The politics is a part of the process. Look at the parties, look which one you feel will serve your interest best, based on the programs and everything, and make a choice. But that is a separate thing from your own personal self-development. Don't depend on no teacher to teach your children. Yesterday and today, you must try and do it.
That's correct.
Please, people. I will leave it there.
Thank you very much. Caller, good afternoon. Thanks for holding.
Good afternoon, Juliet and the others. Juliet, all who making noise about 1 hour service, I would think is a part of ignorance and hatred in their mind. Because if they know the reason why the government is trying to protect us from a virus is to prevent us from dying. And the longer you stay in a group congregating all the time, it's easier for you to catch the virus, to spread it to each other. So what they are talking, if you are praying home, continue praying, and when you get there, you do your service in such a way that you all get together and praise the Lord. What is that? Not ignorance. If even they give them 2 hours, they may say they want 3 hours. They don't even know the reason why he told them that, and he said it, but they don't listen to him. They're just taking up with the other opposition and people want to put against the government. It's for their own good. He's trying to keep all you alive. All you don't want to be alive, all you know where to go and buy something and drink. Go. Okay.
Thank you very much. I want to introduce this article to the conversation, Melba and Mr. Ruka, because we have to admit that our democratic structure is polarized. One in which the two dominant races, African and East Indian, go log ahead for the wrestle of power, right? But whereas the PNM is concerned, it is clear to all and sundry, because it has always been mentioned, from the intellectual to the man, the layman on the ground, that the PNM is a party that represents or looks after all the peoples of Trinidad and Tobago, the African being at the very bottom of that list. The Indo party, the UNC, however, it is clear that their structure is one in which Indian and Hinduism comes first. African have no part of that structure. The only part that we have on that structure is the part of tokenism and window dressing to help them to garner the support in the East-West corridor and pockets of other parts of the country to propel them into government. Once they get there, they serve a sectorial interest. And we saw it between 2010 to 2015, in which there was a coming together of parties. And that coming together of parties represented the rainbow aspect of Trinidad and Tobago, the multi-ethnic and the multi-religious society that we are. But yet still we saw where the UNC and that Hindu faction, they stole power mainly for themselves, blatantly pushing away the parties that would have been the major force behind them winning the government. Because remember, coming from Basdio Pandey, 2007 and thereabout, there was difficulties that the UNC was not attractive to the electorate anymore. And so it was the Christine image of Winston Ducaran and the force of the unions that would have helped the UNC, because outside of that, the UNC could not have seen the corridors of power. Yet still they did not appreciate that. They didn't appreciate the fact that because of it, an Indian woman an Indian woman became the first political leader and prime minister, well, let me say prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And so when they got into government, they discriminated against the parties that formed the coalition. They discriminated against African people because we saw where they took away their jobs. We saw where they gave favor to particularly Indo people. And we saw what happened. And so I want to introduce this conversation because a great part of the leadership of Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the UNC has to do with racism. Racism whereby African people will be snuffed out. Similarly to how George Floyd's breath was snuffed out by that individual police officer and the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan in the United States of America. So we are only here in the UNC to be window dressing and to be tokenism. Now here's what an Indian woman said. Here's what she said. And I'm reading here, folks, from an online publication, Dalit Camera. I would have sent that to you.
Interesting topic.
I would have sent that to you, Aruka.
Interesting header. Very interesting.
It's dated June 8, 2020. Indian racism towards black people is almost worse than white people's racism. An interview with Arundhati Roy. Arundhati Roy. She's an Indian woman.
That's an ethnic Indian.
Yeah. An Indian woman.
Yeah, she's
born and bred.
She's
in
not
India.
a diaspora. Yeah.
Yes.
That name.
Right.
Yes. Is that, yeah.
Right. So the Dalit Camera is interviewing her.
Yeah.
It's a one-on-one. So DC would represent Dalit Camera. DC, how do we support the movement in the US? And how does one show solidarity with people protesting in India? She said, I'm assuming that you mean the massive protest that has erupted over the cold-blooded killing of George Floyd, the latest in a series of killing of African Americans by white American police. I would say that the best way of supporting that movement is to understand where it comes from, first of all. The history of slavery, racism, the civil rights movement, its successes and failures, the crude as well as subtle ways in which African Americans in North America are brutalized, incarcerated, disenfranchised within the framework of democracy. And to understand the role that the majority of the Indian community in the US has played in all of this. Who has it traditionally aligned itself with? The answers will tell us a lot about our society. We can only support that really grand show of rage across cultures and communities that is happening there if we address our own values and actions with some degree of honesty. We ourselves live in a pretty sick society that seems incapable of feelings of sisterhood, brotherhood, solidarity. I'm seeing the signal for the break, so I won't attempt to go further for the time being. So I'll allow both you and Melba to continue, and I'll come back to this because folks need to hear this. Folks need to hear this, at least part of it. So, Melba, the mic is over to you if you wish to.
Yeah, one of the things I sit down here thinking about black people, African people, going to whatever the UNC say. I look at it as the white dolly, black dolly syndrome. They look at Dr. Rowley as this black man, and just as how the children point out, they like the white dolly. This is what happened to African people. It's just as the children like the white dolly.
So they have been programmed.
They programmed.
This woman will tell you.
Yeah.
This woman will tell you about that.
So they program their life And as black men always like
fair skin and softer women.
Yeah. So you see the men gravitating to Kamala and start because of the white dolly, black dolly syndrome.
Wow, Melba. Melba, you always have an interesting theory about things. Very interesting. What do you have to say, Mr. Ruka? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, Juliet, I want the African community in particular to just keep in mind, if some African, in some communities, it does not matter because it's a policy. Because you're talking about give me bread and butter and that's all.
And that's all.
That's all.
Yeah.
So you can discriminate against me however you want.
And that
once you give me a
back,
piece of bread.
And I'm happy you said that because
and some butter in it.
Because it dates back. It dates back to where we are as a people. Because that very same lack of interest for looking down the road, the future, so to speak, is what applies within some black community, some black people within the community, to a large extent. When you look at the education system and how we as parents has allowed our children to apply themselves, they have not applied themselves at all.
So while you thinking bread and butter, I have been to a home in Trinidad, a particular home in Trinidad, where the child is asking the
your headset. You need to put the other piece in your ear because we're getting a feedback.
Yeah.
Right, go ahead.
Where the young child in the house was telling her dad, you talking about bread and butter, was telling her dad she want waffles. And if she couldn't get waffles, she couldn't have breakfast. This is what when you talking about bread and butter, some communities talking about waffles.
Leave it there, caller. Folks, we'll be right back. Keep it locked.
Talk your talk, but we know talk. Come talk with us.
The Street.
919 FM.
This Saturday on Iowa Stage.
Yo, what up, friends? It's your boy Stargram here, and you see this coming Saturday, the 13th of June. It's all about yours truly, Ahmed Stargram, heading down to Iowa Stage. Yes, Iowa Stage for the first time ever Chutney Clash. You heard it, the first time ever Chutney Clash. Iowa Stage, that's this coming Saturday, the 13th of June. I'm going to be singing against my sister in the business, Kavita Ramkissoon, the Chutney Empress. So we're going to be live from 8 p.m. on Facebook, Street 919 FM and 101.7 Facebook page. You all keep it locked. Don't you miss it. This coming Saturday from 8 p.m. Yours truly, Instagram, Kavita Ramkissoon. See you.
Hey guys, this is Igil Kavita Ramkissoon, your Chutney Empress, and on Saturday, June 13th, I am coming to Iowa Stage on 919. We're having something called a Chutney Clash. And guess who I'm up against? Ahmed Stargram. That's my boy, you know. But you see, Saturday is no mercy. We starting at 8, so don't be late. It's 2 Chutney Soca finalists ripping it up on one stage. The vibes real nice. Don't miss it, you know.
Streaming live on Instagram at Iowa George, Facebook Neil Iowa George, and YouTube Iowa TV. It's Iowa Stage.
Hello, this is Pastor Charles from the Upper Room Ministry. Tune into the Street 91.9 FM every Wednesday from 12 midnight to 5 a.m. for a time of prayer and intercession. I want you to know that we are going to have a TIME time in the presence of God, lifting up our nation, lifting up our families in prayer. I'm looking forward to, my God, for you to join with me. Praise God, every Wednesday, praise God, praying for our nation, praying for our families, praying for our children. Join with me every Wednesday at 12 midnight. Tune into the Street 91.9 FM. God bless you.
This is Wayne Delamore, Head Consultant and Director of Natural Health Solution, with over 15 years of experience in clinical nutrition and microscopy. We specialize in early detection and prevention. We incorporate evidence-based nutrition and science-driven analysis. Tune in to our educational program every Wednesday right here on the Street 91.9 FM. For appointments, call 222-2189 or 304-5816. At Natural Health Solutions, we offer a natural solution to healthy living.
Join Wayne Delamore on Wednesdays from 9:15 a.m. to 9:45 a.m. right here on the street, 919 FM.
We are in this together at Darrell's Famous Foods and BQ Bites, 1 week only, starting from Sunday the 14th of June to the 21st of June. You can get plenty for 20 at Darrell's Famous Foods. Have yourself 2 pieces of mouth-watering chicken and 1 side, or 1 zesty chicken sandwich for only $20 at BQ Bites. Get yourself a grab-and-go meal for only $20. Visit Darrell's Famous Foods and BQ Bites, Port Mall, as they acknowledge we are in this together. 1 week only. 2 pieces and 1 side, $20. 1 zesty chicken sandwich, $20. 1 grab-and-go meal, $20. Darrell's Famous Foods and BQ Bites, Port Mall. We are in this together.
Tune in to Shaman's Path every first and third Friday from 10:05 to 10:35 a.m. for hidden truths, wise sayings, current events based on prophecies.
Racism, an interview with Arundat Roy. And they went on to question her. So we're going back to the question. Dalit Camera, are the ideologies and practices of the Ku Klux Klan in the US and the caste Hindu organizing cow vigilantes in India similar? She said, of course, there are similarities. The difference is that the Ku Klux Klan had a somewhat different sense of theater when they conducted their killings, like the RSS today. In its time, the Klan used to be amongst the most influential organizations in the US. Its members had penetrated all public institutions, including the police and judiciary. That explains George Floyd's killing and others. Klan killings were never just killings. They were ritual performances meant to convey terror and teach lessons. This is as true of the lynching of black people by the KKK as it is of the lynching of Dalits and Muslims by Hindu vigilantes. Remember Shuraka Butmanj and her family? Of course, Shuraka Butmanj and George Floyd are very different people with different struggles. People, listen. She and her family were massacred by people from her own village. The cop, Derek Chauvin, murdered George Floyd with a great sense of theater. He had one hand in his pocket and his knee on Floyd's neck. He had help. He had other cops keeping guard. He had an audience. He knew he was being filmed. He did it anyway because he believed he had protection and impunity. At the moment, white supremacists and Hindu supremacists both have sympathizers, to put it politely, occupying high office. So both are on a roll. Can you imagine this?
That is something else.
This woman, this is an Indian woman, you know.
But you see, she's an ethnic Indian, and she can speak the truth from a Dalit perspective.
Yes,
we have persons here pretending to be Brahmins,
right?
And they will sell that story.
Just as what she write there, this man, this fella, he have a radio station. What's his name again?
Inshan
Ishmael say the same thing what she saying there?
Yes.
Inshan Ishmael
is a Muslim. Is a Muslim,
yeah.
And he's an Indian. He said, I have my bald head, but I am 100% Indian.
Yeah.
And he said the same thing that she's saying.
But the caste system applies to the Hindu religion, not the Islamic religion.
That's correct.
That's why he could talk that.
Yes.
Like how she's talking here.
Right. So we continue. Dalit Camera. We see Indians trending. # Black Lives Matter. But in this very country, we find continuous attacks on blacks. How do Indians see blacks? Or what stereotype do we Indians have of them? She replies, look at the Indian obsession with fair skin. It is one of the most sickening things about us. If you watch Bollywood movies, you would imagine India was a country of white folks. Indian racism towards black people is almost worse than white people's racism. It's unbelievable. I've seen it happen on the streets when I've been with black friends. And sometimes it comes from the people whose skin color is really no different. Rarely have I been so enraged and ashamed that racism has manifested in outright attacks. In 2014, soon after the AM Army Party won a massive mandate in the Delhi elections, the Law Minister, Samnath Bharti, led a group of people on a midnight raid. A group of Congolese and Ugandan women were physically attacked and humiliated in Kaikri for being involved with immoral and illegal activities. In 2017, African students were attacked and beaten by a vigilante mob in Greater Noida, charged with selling drugs. But racism in India is vast and varied. Who can forget the BJP Member of Parliament, Turan Vijay, defense of racism after the Noida attack? If we were racist, why would the entire South, you know the Tamils, you know Kerala, Karnataka, and Andhra, why do we live with them? Why do they live with us? We should tell us black South Indian folks. I'd like to know his reasons. I brought this up so that people can understand. This didn't come from Julia Davy. This not coming from Keith Rowley and the PNM. This is coming from a black woman, an activist.
An Indian activist.
Who is saying that Indian racism is far worse than white people racism against African people. Melba, your thoughts?
You see,
you were telling me something before we went to the break.
Yeah, I was saying.
We went to the break.
No, I was saying this is a new norm, they call it. So when I urging that the people who go in for election and they go in and they work to protect and not the campaign, you talk to the youth and them, teach them to plant, teach them to fish. This is time for them to do something of their own.
True.
Start a plant. Everybody can come together. Somebody can plant okra, somebody can plant tomato and keep the money in the community. We're not saying we don't want contracts, we want to be contracts. But not everybody can get contracts. Not every Indian getting contracts.
And not just everybody can get, perhaps everybody can get, but is everyone qualified to get
you
contracts?
understand? And so you have to deal with life in a different way after this COVID-19.
Yes.
We have to look at life as African people in a different kind of way. Because if it come down to feed and we come down to a real pandemic, everybody will be feeding them people. Who will be feeding us? We will remain hungry. Because the Indian go feed the people, the Syrian go feed the people, the white people, everybody go feed the people. African people, time to get up and get, time to hold our head, start a plant, start to do something.
Mr. Ruka.
Yeah. Juliet,
you want to touch on Miss Roy?
Yeah, Miss. Yeah, well, I'm going at racism on the whole and how it affects the African community and how and why we as the defenders, we as the persons who are very much interested in keeping the balance in this country, if we don't defend the African community, the same persons who are siding with the UNC,
the window dressings and the token
siding with the UNC and saying that the PNM ain't do nothing.
Nothing, yes. We are the very same ones who will have to
defend the African community. It was so bad in the 63 months of Kamala Prasad's predecessors' reign reign of terror on the African community that the Jamaican Gleaner had to intervene and call it ethnic stalking.
Yes.
It was every post that every ambassadorial post, foreign ministry
missions,
post, was going to one set, and not only that, we had the Attorney General going to the mission and making racist statements.
Yes, I recall that.
The Attorney General, you had people coming back from the missions in tears, wanting to know how can the country allow.
And you're talking about professionals, eh?
People
who went to school and get an education.
And have qualifications, properly qualified.
And you were telling us something before we went to the break as well about that same qualification. You was telling us.
And this on the backdrop of African persons being misled into saying, and when you speak it comes to form that the PNM didn't do anything for you. Listen, if it wasn't for the dollar for dollar program, if it wasn't for the free tertiary education that started off being dollar for dollar, if it wasn't for the free tertiary education, we would not have had the cadre of African professionals that you are seeing today, that can sit down and challenge the authority. It doesn't matter which one of the authorities they're challenging, but we are better educated, and African people must understand that it is not about bread and butter alone.
Beautiful.
It is also about, and you must take this into cognizance, it is also about educating yourself. Take the opportunities, my brothers. And you can't tell me that you take the opportunity to educate yourself and giving me this hogwash about the PNM and do not. It's an all-out lie. And you should have known that. And I was disappointed.
And it is to rewrite the black man's history.
Yes. And also, one more point, as you say, rewrite the black man's history. Dr. Rowley published a book. Not a book, but he put books on Trinidad and Tobago history in the primary school.
That was one of his initiatives.
Yes. And he said there was a reason for this.
Yes.
People, the children don't know their history. The UNC hated that initiative. You know what they preferred to do? They preferred to give you a cheap clone laptop that lasts you only 3 months. Only trying to repair it. These are things that we must never forgive them.
And one of the things that they are doing now, the UNC that is, and you see they continue to push this this white boogie racism against the 1%. But again, if you go back to this Roy woman that I just read from the DC camera, the Dalit camera, that's really a way in which They're the Indians. And I'm speaking here particularly about the UNC brand of politics, but not the Indian community as a whole.
Right. The UNC brand of politics.
Yeah, the UNC's brand of politics. One of the things that they are pushing is the issue of Stuart Young and Faris Alwari and Colin Burt, who are of a different ethnic stock but has a high profile within the government, to try to plant in the minds of our people that the PNM favors 1%. And that is to disguise their own racism against African people. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
That is their own way of disguising it. For instance, when you listen to them talk about the issue of the Minister of National Security brother and that financial
NCBA
global. When you listen to them, if you don't take the time to read and to do your own research, you will actually believe them.
You would be misled.
But I was fortunate to read an article by one Mr. Wilson. Can't remember his first name now. But I think he's an economist. He writes in the Business Guardian or the Express or one of those newspapers. And I read his column and on the whole issue. And it is an entirely different picture to what Kamala and the UNC are projecting.
I read it.
For brainwashing our people.
He said that there were 4 companies that sent in tender, and NCB Global was the only cheapest one.
Yes.
And it was cheaper by millions of dollars.
Thank you very much.
So the government would have gone for this kind of lending. And Kamala is trying to tell you, because somebody named Young is the manager, he is getting the contract. The people and he also said that the NCBA is prepared to take a smaller profit.
That's correct.
He also said that. So what is the problem?
He also said that it appears that Kamala doesn't know the difference between
profit and interest. And interest.
Yes.
Yes. Imagine, and this is a leader. This was a prime minister, and telling us that she wants to be a prime minister.
And you know why?
It seems that it's not that alone. She ain't know.
And you know why?
She ain't know how to say disenfranchising like that. That bleep.
Let me go to the lines, because we're out of time. Caller, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon to you.
No, Jenny, yes, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Right. Now, to piggyback on what Melba said, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Now, a comment about racism. Our brother, Mr. Aruka, you might know in cricket, I don't know if you follow cricket. Darren Sami from the West Indies, who made us proud, and we won the World Cup, was playing in India. Yes, and they call him Kali. And he didn't know, because I hear it on the BBC, I hear it on the local news here yet, on the BBC, and they call him Kali. So he didn't know. When he realized what that meant, he called on the Indian Cricket Board for an apology. I should tell you about the racism. Darren Sami, now coming back, the Indo-Trinidadians of Trinidad and Tobago, you all should worship the PNM. Because Dr. Williams put laws to ensure that young ones go to school. At those times, they don't send anything to school. He had to put laws to make sure that they go to school, so they become doctor, a lawyer, and all kind of things. Then Mr. Manning, when he had the big thing in Caroni, they get land, they get money. More than all that them fellows working on the docks and the wharf from, they have real benefits. And then when Mr. Prasad says, come in now, you're going to tell people the only dance here church you know is PNM children.
Okay, leave it there, Kola.
What is the makeup of the PNM children?
Leave it there.
African children?
Leave it there, Kola.
And you come in now to insult us, to want to put yourself in the East-West corridor.
Leave it there, Kola.
You fire African people saying that they're looking like, they didn't want to say African, they say they're looking like PNM.
Okay, Kola, you have to leave it there. You have to leave it there, Kola.
Right.
Kola, good afternoon and welcome.
Ms. Xavier, part of that same interview that was done, there was a question asked to the lady, and they asked her, why are blacks still stereotyped as drug dealers, savages, cannibals, and in the Indian psyche, thereby the Indian news? And what she said was instructive. She said that part of the racist culture, and she said there was a film that they produced called The Sons of Abraham. They showed the villains to be vicious.
Speed it up, Jenny. We out of time. Speed it up.
Yes. Okay, and they were all blacks, but she's saying in that community there are no black people. Simply meaning they took Indians, made them in the film as if they were Indians, and have an Indian superhero killing them out, showing them as villains and drug dealers. So it's a part of the whole psyche that the Indians within that society continue to do, and it's translated into Trinidad society.
Thank you very much, Denny. Thank you very much. We cannot take any more calls.
Before I go, Juliet, I just want to say happy birthday. Happy birthday to Yusuf. Happy birthday to my ex-son-in-law. Happy birthday, Yusuf. I'm coming up there for the Chinese food.
Okay, folks, Melba, let me say thank you. Let me say thank you, Mr. Ruka. It was a very lively discussion here today on the One Shot, One Kill program. I thank you very much. Folks, keep it locked to the Street 919 FM. Up next, the news. Yes, time is up. Yes, we have to make time for the ads and for the new person to come in and what have you. Keep it locked, folks, to the Street 919 FM. We love you. See you tomorrow. See you next week, God's willing. Bye.